Question 7. I'm going to keep on plowing ahead. Why are Christians so bigoted, sexist, judgmental, and rude? It's actually a really good question. I wish I knew. Well, actually, we will try to give an answer on this one.
Push the boys!
Christians are often accused of being like backwards, repressive, oppressive traditionalists who just want to tell people how to live their lives and all the wrong that they're doing, right? And they just want to basically point the finger and say, you're a sinner, you're going to hell, I'm doing it right, and if you don't abide by the way I think you should live your life, then God's going to judge you, and basically they use God as a weapon. So how would you respond to such accusations?
Yeah. I think one of the ways that I would respond is from a heart posture of saying, okay, let's relate this to something else we can understand. So I look at it and say, if someone were to come and say a certain idea or a certain thing about your place of employment, everybody at this place of employment is this way, right?
Yeah.
You would obviously go, wait a second, let's think about this. For my example, I work in an auto manufacturer, which auto manufacturers are huge, and they're typically in multiple countries. They have manufacturing engineers, they have salespeople, they have purchasing, they have maintenance people. There's people everywhere in multiple different walks, multiple different jobs. Yeah. So if someone were to come in and say, your auto manufacturer is this way, and everyone in there is this way, that would obviously be not true. So something like a religion like Christianity, which is massive, how are we going to be able to define Christians as a total in these things, bigoted, sexist, judgmental, rude? I think it kind of brings us back down to earth saying, okay, I get you're hurt. Maybe you've been hurt by Christians that act in these ways. But not every Christian is like that. It's just rational to say, okay, just because you identify with Christianity does not make you these things. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of the heart posture of coming to somebody and saying, okay, let's talk about this reasonably, right?
Yeah, and often the question behind the question is why if these people are claiming to represent Jesus, do they do it so poorly? And we're not trying to minimize that Christianity has been used in very wrong ways throughout the centuries. That people who claim to represent Jesus have done an absolutely abysmal job of doing it, us included sometimes, you know? Now, we must, however, lovingly point out to these people that what one person or group of people says or does not equate all of them, or that the ideology or the philosophy itself is causing it. You know, like just because Christians are sometimes oppressive and act that way does not mean that Christianity elicits oppression out of people or results in this kind of behavior. Correlation is not causation. We see it even with non-believers who see the same thing. And I like your Christ. I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ, as said by Gandhi. And I think there's plenty of Christians who would read that and agree. We love Jesus. Everyone's cool with Jesus, but the people who claim to represent him sometimes do a really, really bad job.
And I think a lot of times too, we get in this mindset of, you know, we've got to uphold, we got to be perfect, and yes, we want to be perfect like Christ is perfect, mm-hmm. but we're never going to fully achieve that. I actually heard somebody the other day talk about the one thing you can't make fun of is a fat person going to the gym, because how wrong would that be for somebody that's actively trying to better themselves? And yes, they're not going to look like most other people in the gym, but they're there to do what they are trying to do, trying to lose weight. In the same way, I think people see Christians as sinners and go, well, look at those sinners in the church. It's like, yeah, we're here because we need to be better. We're trying to be more like Christ. And unfortunately, sometimes we're the Christians that are like the people that go to Planet Fitness just eat pizza, you know?
Yeah, that's sometimes how we act, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's unfortunate, and that's what I believe Gandhi's trying to say here is don't be the Christian that's the person that goes to Planet Fitness to just eat pizza, but anyway.
As much as we try to act like Jesus, we often fall short of the mark and need to seek forgiveness, not just from God, but from the world around us, whom we have failed from not representing Jesus correctly. You know, and I think that's something that we should be keeping in mind. There was a really amazing story that I heard. I think I heard it from Paul, honestly, during a Sunday morning. But basically, the story was a group of young Christians, like young adults, in their like maybe mid-30s. They decided to go to a college campus in Portland, Oregon, and set up a confession booth right? And this was like during like a very way of the world kind of celebration month. No specific month. I think it was just something that was unique to that Portland area. But they wanted to go and set up a confession booth for people to come and confess their sins, right? And so, you know, they're in there, they're in the booth, and the student comes in who's very much not a Christian, very much living the way of the world, very much not, very against Christians, and it's very obvious he was, because he was coming there to mock, right? And rather than having him confess his sins to them, they instead flipped it around and started apologizing to him for the ways in which Christ has been misrepresented across the centuries, in their city, by their church, by them personally. And by the end of the interaction, this kid who, you know, walked in hating Christians was like, this is actually really cool that you guys are doing this. Like, more people need to come and hear this. I really honor and respect that. You know, obviously I'm putting Christian words around it, but that's kind of the sentiment, was like, I'm going to change the way that I see Christians, because not all Christians fit that stereotype. Not all Christians are the bigoted, sexist, judgmental, and rude people that we've been made out to be. And I think that the best possible way that we can correct this stereotype about Christians is to actually, in humility and meekness, walk the crucified life. If we're going to claim to represent Christ, we have to not just talk the talk, we have to walk the walk.
Yeah. So I love 1 Corinthians 13. Basically, it's going through the idea of love, and everyone probably knows at this point what 13 is about. But
everyone's been to a few weddings.
Yeah.
So.
But one of the things I want to sum up out of that is you can have all wisdom, all knowledge, and multiple other things, but without love, it's meaningless. So again, the only way for us to really reach these people is to humble ourselves and truly love them. And that doesn't mean sacrificing the truth. It means loving them well. Yeah. So in Matthew 5:14-16, it says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." So again, just reaffirming, this is who we are meant to be. We're meant to be the light of the world and to show them that we are not bigoted and etc.
Yes, all the adjectives. Mm-hmm. And 1 Peter 3:14-17 says, "But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. But in your hearts, honor Christ as Lord, the Lord, as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it's better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than to suffer for doing evil." Let's not get confused. Suffering because you're being insufferable is deserved. Suffering because you're doing righteousness, being slandered for doing righteousness, that's where you're blessed.